Welcome back. We are talking to Monica Talmadge, who is a member of the Young Democrats of America. They're DNC, I always get the DNC woman.
Yes.
DNC woman, okay, right. Wonderful conversation about all things relevant, I think, to this country and people participating in those processes who are of her generation. She's not afraid to tell you that she's 33 years old. And the reason that's important is because Southern women don't tell their age. I know, I grew up in a household with Southern women, and we really don't tell our age. I have to actually calculate. I mean, I have to remember what story I told the last person.
The last person?
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, how old are you today? Well, I don't know.
How old do I look?
I never asked that. I never asked that. So in order to, one of the things that you think is important to turn around sort of the malaise that we find in our communities of color, Black and Hispanic communities of color, would be a better focus on education.
Absolutely.
Is that right? Did I state that appropriately?
Absolutely.
Why do you think that's, I mean, everybody says that, but the steps toward making that change a holistic change is, they're very slow to happen. Why do you think it's critical that we put more emphasis on change?
Well, I was reading an article not too long ago, and it kind of encapsulated exactly how I feel. An uneducated population is easier to control. And that hit home for me in that I'm not a person that wants to be controlled. I want my opinion and my voice heard, so that therefore I need to be able to speak the language of the people who have the quote unquote power. And I think a lot of communities of color have ceded that particular piece of control to the void. They have not clung on to the importance of a sound education, of a good education. I don't care if it's a technical education or if it's a liberal arts education, an education nonetheless. That education will get you in the door. And then you bust the door wide open. There's an expression down in North Carolina, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
That's right.
And
I love that.
The best way to stay off the menu is to be able to read it.
Right.
And to be able to read the directions to not go to the kitchen.
Yeah.
And a lot of times our communities have ended up on the menu, and they have ceded their power to people who are making decisions for them and about them. When you educate someone, when you take that information and you put that little head in a book, and they're forced to read that information, they take it in and they internalize it, and it becomes something that's a part of them. And education is something that, once given, can never be taken away.
That's true.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so adamant about it, because you can take away my job, you can take away my clothes, you can take away my fortune, but you cannot take away the education that I've been given, that I've been imbued with. You cannot take away the fact that I can think a linear thought. I can think from beginning to end.
That's right.
And if we don't start really emphasizing to our young people how important that education is, we're going to have a problem. We're going to have an even bigger problem on our hands. Especially when it comes to educating young women. When you go to most college campuses, most of the people that you see on college campuses are young women. And I love that. I absolutely love that they're seeking knowledge in that way. But we can't make education cost prohibitive. We can't make it so elitist.
Which is actually what's happening.
Absolutely.
Right now. It's
absolutely coming from.
what's
I'm
happening.
sure it's coming from different legislatures from all across the region. I know what's happening in North Carolina. I know what's happening in South Carolina, and I know what's happening in Virginia. So, we have to stop cutting education funding. Absolutely.
We do. But, part of the issue as well, and we talked about this a lot, the similarities in our upbringing. Families that really knew what they wanted from us.
Yes.
Families who wouldn't take your C in honors chemistry, and my mother who made me practice a violin, which I hated, and to this day, I love hearing other people play it.
Yeah.
It just wasn't for me.
Mine was the saxophone.
Oh gosh. Okay, I'm feeling better about my violin. But made us focus on things that they thought would make us well-rounded, would not accept, I won't do, I can't do. And you see so much of that in kids these days. And I think it is, as overused as this phrase is, I think, or this sentence is, I think it's because the families are not as well focused on raising their children as they used to be. I think that's true in part. And we've allowed a shifting of parental responsibilities to go toward the school system. You know, it's the school system's responsibility to feed kids in the morning, to address family issues, to make sure kids have health care in schools. I know up here we do those kinds of things, have socks and things for kids who are leaving for school in the morning because their parents have not gotten out of bed for all kinds of reasons, working 2 shifts, working a late night, not being able to get up in the morning because they're working a night shift that they need to work in order to pay for, in order to keep these families afloat. So, is there really, from your perspective as a 33-year-old, is there a way that you see feasible to convince your generation that the emphasis has to be on the education of those kids, not on the career personally, or you need to find a way to get it all done?
Well, we were raised by a generation of superwomen, and supermen and women, to be quite frank with you. I did have my mother and my father in the household. I saw my mom and my dad, you know, work every single day. But at the same time, I also saw them come home. And when my father was traveling, my mother took on the mantle of being mom and dad. My mother did sometimes work 2 jobs. My mother still checked homework. My mother still tucked us in. My mother still went grocery shopping. I was, you know, my mom's right-hand man, if you will, but at the same time, my mom knew, and she still to this day knows, as a grown woman, and my 2 sisters are grown, my mother's biggest job is being a mother. And I know a lot of people might disagree with me when I say this, but if you don't want to have any children, then you probably should take the precautions that need to be done to not have them. If you're not ready, go ahead and say you're not ready. You can be 40 years old and say you're not ready to have children. I will completely respect that. But what I have a difficult time respecting is someone who is, you know, who's 30 years old and just wants to pawn that child off on a mother, their mother, or wants to pawn the child off on someone else, or wants to say, oh, well, you know, I had to do such and such and such, therefore I couldn't check, you know, little Johnny's homework. Your job and your main responsibility is to be a parent.
Yeah, the assumption in that statement, though, is that women make the connection between the overwhelming responsibilities of being a parent and actually, you know, having the baby. And mostly, and especially with the younger, we've got so many teenage pregnancies right now. You know, they think they're raising toys.
Right. And they can put that toy down
Whenever
and
they
can walk away and go back to doing what they want to do. And let me say this as a disclaimer, and I will be honest, I haven't had children yet. And the reason why I haven't had children yet is because I couldn't be here with you, having this conversation with you on a Thursday morning, on a Friday morning rather, because I would have to take care of those children. That's my main responsibility, and that's why I've chosen to not have children yet.
But, you know, this is, and we only have a few minutes left, but we have, this is such a critical conversation, and we talk about it a lot on this show because to me it is a critical conversation. If we are going to really change in a sustainable way the status of our community, it has to happen through education. It has to happen through self-responsibility. And I don't think much else is important. I think that when you take a look, you haven't read, we talked about this, you haven't read Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow.
Not
You
yet.
gotta read it. When you take a look at the number of people who were in jail, who were in that system, and you read their stories, you know, you read her research about their stories, you understand that intervention has to be immediate because we are losing a generation of men.
Yes. We absolutely
losing a
are.
generation of
We
men.
absolutely are.
We have just a few seconds left. What would you like to say? I'm going to let you have like a whole minute to talk to folks your age out there.
Let's see. What do I say? Where do I begin? First of all, thank you for those people who are active in their churches, who are active in their communities, who are active in their sororities, who are active in their fraternities, who are active in the clubs all across the county, all across the state. I want to say thank you because it's your selflessness that helps young people see that, even folks who are even younger than us, it helps them see that they can balance their career and being fit and being socially active. To those people who are not, because they don't quite have the time, invest in your home. Go get a book and read it to a child. Go get one of those elderly people that live next door to you and take them to the grocery store and actually engage with them and talk to them and listen to them. Y'all have snow. We don't have snow in North Carolina. But if you do have snow and you do have an elderly neighbor, go shovel out their driveway and don't tell them that you did it. Random, selfless acts of kindness are the things that are going to turn this world around. We have to be responsible for ourselves. We have to be responsible for each other. I'm trying my best to be responsible for you and to stand in the gap for each one of you and to be your voice. But I can't do it by myself.
And you can't do it by yourself, and that is really, really key. The involvement of women in this process, and those women that you speak for, is critical.
Yes.
And we have, again, so many issues that we are trying to deal with as we move forward. Your advice to those really busy women would be?
Get in where you fit in and do it when you can.
Do it.
You fit in and do it when you can. If you can't go out and canvas on a Saturday afternoon, if you can't go take 30 minutes, 45 minutes of your life and go stuff an envelope, go stuff an
Figure it
envelope.
out. And
Make
it's
it happen.
worth it.
Absolutely.
It's worth it.
It's absolutely worth it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We got to go away, but we'll be right back.